I hope this doesn't eat up all my bandwidth.
Everyone, Brian, I'm going to turn my video off just to save your bandwidth as well.
I think so. I think, yeah.
Oh, do we need to do that?
Maybe whoever's talking, do their video on, and then whoever's not. And plus, I'm going to start recording now because I'm worried about Victoria's as well. So we'll just drive on as usual. All right, Ms. Garrison, you're up. Oh,
She's muted though.
she is muted. There she goes. Oh, she's finding a new place.
Yeah. I'm sorry, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to power through with my connection, and I'm trying to find a better spot here. Meanwhile, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and see if we can verify quorum. Ms. Hobeich, do you have the roll call?
Yes, I do. Mrs. Jones,
Yes, here.
Dr. Windsor,
Present.
Miss Mendoza,
Here.
Dr. Tejan,
Here.
Mrs. Martinez, and Mrs. Hobeige here.
Okay. Oh, and
There
there's
she is.
Martinez, yeah.
Here we go.
Do I need
Okay,
to call her again?
Oh,
Yes, please.
Mrs. Martinez? Miss Martinez? You're muted.
and I don't have it.
There she is.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you,
thank you.
Okay.
Martinez. Okay, we
And-
can move to, I'm sorry, we can move to item 2, discussion and vote to approve the previous minutes. Does everyone have the minutes, or would you like me to share the screen?
I have it.
I
Okay.
have them.
Do you have to share since we're on Zoom or?
Hmm.
I don't mind sharing.
Yeah, that might be.
I have them, but I didn't know if you had to.
Okay, yeah, I can pull them up.
It's a good suggestion.
Let's see.
Okay, can everyone see the minutes?
No, that's your that's OneDrive list.
Yeah.
Still the same OneDrive list.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let me
I can
get
share them.
away.
I can share them, Miss Garrison.
Okay.
I'm Miss Jones, sorry. I think. Okay.
This has been, I move to adopt the minutes as presented.
What is
I'll
that?
second.
Okay, I think we can voice vote that one, Ms. Sobesh.
Sorry, who seconded that?
I did. Beth,
Thank
sorry.
you. No, it's okay, just cut out. Okay, all in favor?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Okay, we can move to the next item, call to the public. And did we receive any notices from the public?
There were no notices from the public.
Okay, then we can go to the next meeting, the presentation of the strategic plan of our Paideia Academy's strategic plan.
I will share my screen for you.
Thank you. Well, so the background on this document and this plan, we met over the summer for our continuous improvement plan, the executive leadership team, along with key leaders on our campus, our principals and counselors and social workers and team leads and our director of special education. We all came together to work on our corporate annual plan and to come up with a strategic theme. We went through a variety of data sources to determine a theme. We looked at academic data. We looked at survey data because we sent out lots of surveys last year to our students, to staff, to parents as part of our Cognia accreditation plan. And so a lot of that survey data gave us some information about some common themes that we noticed. Those surveys, along with, again, our academic data and our internal data, showed a common theme. And the theme was that we wanted to work on authentic relationships across our organization and rigor, having rigorous learning opportunities for our scholars and with support, rigor with support. So our strategic theme came out to be relationships and rigor, authentic relationships. As a corporate office, came together and created an objective, what we called an objective, and some critical initiatives and key measures around this strategic theme. And so the first objective we created was to increase our attendance district-wide. Again, looking at data, looking at what were some of the things that stood out, that was a big piece there. And to track that, our critical initiatives was to track our attendance data, to inform action on how we want to address attendance, and also to develop a district-wide response to chronic absenteeism. And we decided that we would measure this by looking at school-wide attendance reports, which we do review pretty much weekly in our executive leadership meetings. Our second objective was to improve teacher retention. And of course, the importance of teacher retention being key for the success of our school. So some critical initiatives we came up around that objective was to improve our comprehensive induction and mentoring program. Myself and Mrs. Mendonça and Mrs. Chu all took on several new teachers, and it became started a mentoring program where we're just checking in with these teachers to make sure that they are coming along fine with the Paideia way. We also wanted to provide training for our campus leaders on teacher retention and authentic relationships, and to provide courses and workshops for beginning Paideia educators. Some key measures that we are going to look at to see if we are meeting this objective are feedback surveys from our staff, faculty, and leadership, and our corporate mentor check-ins as we check in with with our teachers. And lastly, the last objective is to increase rigor with support across campuses. And our critical initiatives around this objective is to invest in curriculum and resources that promote rigor with support. And we do have a school-wide or district-wide definition of rigor. We went over that in our summer trainings. And so we want to invest in resources to promote this rigor with support. And we want to provide training for our campus leaders and clearly define and monitor the implementation of rigor with support, particularly some of those AVID trainings and other things that we have going on around rigor. And our key measures are our walkthrough data and our observation reports as we check out our classrooms and teacher instructional practices, and our curriculum inventory and distribution, make sure that our curriculum resources and everything we're investing in is helping us to meet that objective. Any questions or comments on our strategic plan? Dr. Windsor, Mrs. Mendoza, anything to add?
No, it was I think the thing from me that was pretty wonderful. I think when we talk, we should make sure we're on the video. What was meaningful to me was to watch us come together as a full corporation and have the two separate campuses work together on their own separate data. This is the first time we've ever really done it this well. Each campus with their principal and their leaders met together with their key leaders and analyzed a variety of data and came up with their strategic initiatives, their critical initiatives, and their objectives and key measurements based upon the corporate's key strategic initiative. And it was really powerful. And to see PEA, the Elementary Academy, do that, and the Liberal Arts Academy do that, it was encouraging for our future, I think is what I mean.
I think it was significant that we were working in 3 different groups, but we all came to the same conclusion.
Yeah, that was yeah.
That was really cool. So
Hey, this is Ben. I just wanted to piggyback on what Beth just said, because I mean, I wasn't there, and my opinion is, only relevant for myself, I suppose. But those are all the things that I would have hoped Paideia would focus on. So thank you very much for the effort. I think it's the strategic plan is right on point.
Thank you, Dr. Tejan.
Could I ask for those who might not have been aware of rigor that are watching, maybe like a brief explanation of that?
Sure. I think I have that. Do you remember it, Ms. Jones, or do you want me? I think I can find that definition.
Yeah, actually, I think I have it pulled up here. I wanted to say it word for word how we to our how we're defining it school-wide.
I think if we're speaking, we should unmute or put our video on. Okay, I think it would help not have any open meeting.
And I am struggling a little bit with my connection, but I think I'm okay now. Okay, so our definition of rigor, we adopted AVID's general definition of rigor because that's what we're following, and it just makes sense for what we're doing. So our definition is using inquiry-based collaborative strategies to challenge and engage scholars in content resulting in increasingly complex levels of understanding. And I know that that sounds like a lot, so I want to let you know that when we broke down this definition of rigor, we actually did like a close read of that entire definition with our staff and went through all the elements. What is inquiry-based? What are collaborative strategies? How do we challenge and engage scholars? What type of content? What is increasingly complex levels of understanding? And so we also created rigor posters, what it is, what it isn't. So this is something that's ongoing for us, but it's a definition that is how we've decided to kind of stake our claim on that definition. Good question, Ms. Obesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on the presentation of our strategic plan, we can move on to item 5, the information on a leadership change at PLA, Paideia Liberal Arts Academy. Dr. Windsor,
Sure.
want to discuss that? Go ahead.
Mr. Gilmer is now the principal, full on capital P, of Paideia Liberal Arts Academy. He's been with us for 3 years. He started out as the health and wellness and physical education teacher. Over the years, he has shown himself to be everything Paideia would hope a leader would be. Very proactive, coachable, uses his resources and initiative. He's relationship driven. All the staff fully trust him and have great leadership relationships with him. So we watched him grow over the years. And then last year he was Dean of Students. And then this year he started out as Dean of Students with the idea that he would become the principal eventually someday when I morphed and transferred out as principal and then became only executive director. And Mrs. Jones, and Ms. Mendonça and Ms. Loring sat me down, and it really helped me to understand it is time for me to step aside and let Mr. Gilmer fully take the reins while I'm still there to help out and to coach and support. And over the last 2 or 3 weeks that he's taken the reins, been very impressed. He's doing a great job. So that's some information for you all. He is the principal of the Liberal Arts Academy.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Windsor. And so with that, we can go to item 6, discussion and vote our annual financial review, AFR. And I think I saw Mr. Bryce. Joel, are you there?
I'm here, but we
Oh,
don't
okay.
have an AFR to set before the board
Oh.
tonight.
Did I call it the wrong thing?
No, you called it the right thing. It's just a little bit early. They released that file last week, and I've not had a chance to complete it for Paideia. I'll have it done by the deadline for filing on the 15th of October very easily, but we can put it on the agenda at the next board meeting for ratification if it falls after the 15th of October.
Okay, so then what are we doing and looking at
Hold on.
tonight?
What you've got up there, let's change that item. This is the right thing we did talk about. This is the revised state budget for fiscal.
Okay, Ms. Garris, Ms.
Yeah.
Jones, as the board chair, we just have to rename. I named this thing the wrong thing from last year's
Okay.
agenda.
Do we need to vote to on that, or is that just something we can just?
It might have been addressed under the approval of the agenda, just to note the change to that one item to correct it. It wasn't, so at this point, probably just, yeah, great question. It's just a misstatement of what the document is.
Of the document, right.
Yeah.
Tejan, weigh in on this.
I think this is a clerical error. You can proceed.
Okay, yeah.
I like it. That's too technical.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Okay, Joel, tell me what to write in item number 6 so I could write it correctly, so I could redo the uploads.
We just need the revised state budget for fiscal year 25. So that in place of AFR. In reference to the correct fiscal year.
Okay, I can read you that. Thanks so much for your patience. All right,
No
go ahead,
problem.
John.
Sorry for the confusion. It's funny, the timing of this, the AFR is coming up. So I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I miss that on the agenda? I was not paying attention. So if you recall, board members, we had a 3-part process to the state budget approval this year. The normal 2, the proposed and adopted budgets we did, but they had not made the fiscal year 25 budget file available to us yet due to the legislature passing the state budget so late in last fiscal year. So that required this 3rd step. The revised budget that you see before you here has the same data incorporated into it as the proposed and adopted versions that you already passed. The only differences are related to the state per pupil funding formula that's included in this budget file. So right here on the cover, the only place you really see much of a difference at all is the state revenue on the right-hand side. It's like the 4th line down with data in it. State 3,000 revenue, that number of 8,750,000, exactly right there. That is higher than the adopted budget version that you passed because the funding formula for this file is reflective of the correct fiscal year 25 funding formula.
Oh,
Everything
good.
else is the same from one budget to the next.
So that's good news.
That's good news. Yep. And just as an FYI to the board, we internally budget for our operating budget or the budget that we actually execute. We use our enrollment projection pretty close to where we actually are, and we hold ourselves accountable to all of those things. For the state budget, we kind of back that down a little bit, that enrollment projection. So the expenses and the revenues in your state budget are a little lower than your operating budget, but it ticks and ties within that deviation of the enrollment from one to the next. So we're showing them what we're going to do if we had a few fewer students in our enrollment numbers than we actually do. We do that in order to eliminate the need to revise the budget to the state every time we make a change to the budget. If you, as an example, project 800 ADM for the year in your state budget and you come in at 799, you have to revise your budget every single time you make a change to your budget because you were off in your enrollment count. Whereas the other way, if you say 800 students, but you have 810, you don't have to revise your budget to the state every time you actually make a change to your budget. I don't know why that's the rule, but it is in fact the rule. So out of an abundance of caution, we usually model the state revenues down to a slightly lower enrollment number than we actually think we'll achieve. And that's been our history with Paideia since 2016 at least. So with that, no other real changes to this budget from the budgets you've already approved other than the revenues for the state are in fact different.
So a motion to approve the revised state budget for fiscal year 2025. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
So moved. If there's no questions.
This is Ben, I second.
Teeter,
Okay, roll call.
Yes, please. And I think we unvideo yourself, show yourself, I think, for the roll call voice vote, the roll call vote.
Miss Jones,
Yes.
Miss Mendoza,
Yes.
Ms. Martinez,
yes.
and Mrs. Hobe, yes.
Dr.
Dr.
Teacher.
Windsor, yes. And
So if
TJ.
you motioned it, didn't you?
Yes,
we
that's
still
a
have to
vote.
vote.
Okay, Dr. Windsor,
Yes.
yes, and Dr. Tejan.
Yes,
Okay,
Very good. All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 7. This is a discussion and vote on the Classroom Site Fund Teacher Performance Plan. Thanks, Joel, by the way.
bet.
Discussion and vote on the Classroom Site Fund Teacher Performance Plan for fiscal year 2025. And Dr. Windsor, did you want me to try to share that one?
I'm on a roll now.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Hey, this is Ben. Sorry to interrupt. Is Joel, are you able to stay for the CSF discussion?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Dr. Windsor, did you want to talk through this one? Or you want me to?
I would love for you to.
Okay. All right, so this is our updated classroom site fund teacher performance plan. What we did is we basically separated the performance plan into two buckets. This is our teacher principal evaluation policy. And so we allocated two buckets towards teacher effectiveness and professional development. So within this year's plan provides up to $5,000 of additional compensation, again, focusing on teacher performance. We really wanted to put the emphasis on the language of the plan is that it's about teacher performance, high levels of performance on identified measures. So we're looking at the final performance classification and professional development for our CSF plan. So $3,000 of that of potential compensation is the estimated performance pay plan for $3,000 per eligible full-time teacher. And this is based on the final performance classification. So based on our performance educator effectiveness framework. So on that rubric, which is our teacher effectiveness, a rubric, if they have a combined average score of 90 to 100, they're considered highly effective, and that will result in the full payout of $3,000. 75 to 89% effective on that formal rubric would result in the $2,250 to $2,800 of payout. And then 60 to 74% would be considered developing, and anything lower than 59% also not eligible for payout, because again, we're looking at high levels of performance compensation. So eligible teachers must perform at the top 2 levels to be eligible for that payout. And again, the scores are based on the Arizona teaching standards. Those are the required standards that we have to go off of within the educator effectiveness rubric.
Also of note is one second. Also of note is 20% of their final effectiveness score is based upon academic achievement of their group of students they're responsible for.
Okay, and then within the second bucket, it's a professional development bucket of potential compensation of $2,000. So they may earn up to $2,000 for their professional development activities occurring between June 1st up to May 31st, 2025. So we divided this also into two categories of professional development. So there's the charter required professional development. These are professional development activities that that are required in our as part of Paideia. These are trainings that we give on a monthly basis, our summer trainings, all of our required PD. So they have to complete those required professional development hours to be eligible. And then they need to do an additional 10 hours. So those are 10 hours of charter required professional development. And then they need to do an additional 8 hours of individual or independent professional development. And this is from a menu of options or things that are approved by the school. We do have many of these professional development opportunities within our internal programs, but also, Department of Education or other places where teachers go to get additional professional development. So 10 hours, 8 hours for a total of 18 hours of professional development to get that payout. So to be eligible for the performance pay, they have to be employed with Paideia Academies during this current school year. They have to be compensated on a teacher's salary schedule, and they have to have a start date on or before December 20th and work through the end of their contract date.
I've note I want to point out too that it's not prorated. It's all or nothing. You finish the 18 hours of professional development to get the $2,000.
Yeah.
Questions, Brian and Victoria? All teachers are eligible for this, so that would mean specials, intervention, EL, SPED, and regular ed.
Correct.
Yes.
We budgeted around a kind of a peg number of roughly $3,000 per teacher, based on all those teacher classifications for the payment of additional compensation from classroom site funds in the form of a bonus. Usually there's those that don't make it, there's those that make it all the way, and there's a bunch that are in between somewhere. So there's always what we call breakage in that plan.
Yeah.
And the number right now is about 3,054 per eligible teacher at max. So that my only thought is if everybody did everything, we're going to go over budget on that, and there's no new revenue to offset that. It can be paid for out of classroom site funds. It just means your total budget is going to be over by that $2,000 PD amount. And then the only other just thought is $2,000 for 18 hours is about $111 an hour. Is that the right target, or thoughts on that? I know it's extra work outside the contract, so paying extra is not the issue. It's just the amount of pay related to that feels a lot. But it may be that that's the goal. That's the goal, is to motivate people to do it.
To do it, yes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how many people would likely max the plan?
I looked at this right here. So, over the years, as I looked at this, there's less people, unfortunately, and we need to work on this. There's less people that get up here, and we pay out a bunch right here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Up, it looks like, yeah. In the past,
So
we paid
that's
at a lower level.
That's a zero.
Yep.
So we hope there's more people getting up here, and I want to incentivize them from not limping around on the developing, but get yourself up there.
Yeah.
And some,
Exactly.
Beth, were you saying something, Beth?
No,
No, that wasn't me.
Oh,
it
Fatima?
was me. Yeah. It's
Right.
good. It's really good because they, I hope this motivate the teachers and they can go to the 90 and 100
Yeah.
effective. Yeah. And they can get both, right?
They can get both. Yeah.
Good.
They can get both. Now, I took this part here. I researched districts who are doing something innovative. So Flagstaff Unified District's doing something like this, and Kyrene District's doing something like this. Kyrene's, I think, turned out to be $77 a credit hour that they completed. And as we went back and forth, we just came up with these two numbers of.
That might have been what I missed. It's a credit hour, not necessarily a straight hour of time.
They're credit hours. It might not be time. It might take
Yeah,
them
so it might take them far more than an hour to complete a credit hour. That's the part I wasn't tracking. I apologize.
Yeah.
In the individual, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the idea quite a bit. And I'm not even pushing back on the number. I'm just bringing that to your attention. So a total of 5,000 potential payout at max.
Yeah.
Times the number of teachers we have would, if everyone did it, I guess we'd be happy to cut those checks, but that would put us over budget by, I'll tell you exactly by how much. $108,864 in gross comp plus bennies times 1.7, about $125,000 if everybody maxed everything out. Obviously, that is very, very, very unlikely, unfortunately. I kind of, my gut tells me we've got a good enough number in the budget, Brian, probably to cover this. Again, sadly, but it's something that we can work on throughout the course of the year. As we're seeing the progress on the PD side specifically, we can free up some budget later in the second half of the year in all likelihood to cover it if needed.
Yeah. one of the discussions that we had was how do you make it equitable? Because remember last year this bottom bucket was based upon the growth and achievement of your homeroom kids. So the problem with that was, how do you make that equitable for a teacher who doesn't really have a homeroom?
Yeah.
Or, a specials or the electives do, but the specials or the special ed teachers who don't really necessarily own body, mind, heart, spirit, 20 kids. So then that's where I started doing some research about other ways. And I like this one because I think we can incentivize them to get beyond some professional development. And also Ms. Jones is creating we have a Canvas account of personal development and of classes and courses that she's developed online that they can go on and accomplish and provide evidence and documentation that they have.
You have a way of tracking all that, it sounds like, already in place, because that's always the hard part, is administering these things at the end of the year.
Yes, we do have a way of tracking PD hours. And also, I just want to mention that it is, it is in line with our, another reason why this fit with us is it's in line with with our strategic plan, with what we're trying to achieve. We want everyone to be growing as educators, and that's through the professional development and spending that time. So yeah, those are the main reasons why we went in that direction of professional development.
Now, one thing you might notice too, Joel, you mentioned a word, it's a B word, bonus. You notice we stripped that out of all of our language. This is not a bonus. This is strictly performance pay. Bonus feels like everybody should get it. Why didn't I get a bonus? Why didn't I get a bonus?
To
we
me,
stripped it all away.
It feels like the opposite, but I like that idea. It's performance. It's based on their individual efforts, not their collective team efforts necessarily, although it all fits together. The other thing worth noting, it looks like from a implementation plan, there will be no mid-year payout of anything. This is all or nothing at the end of the year.
Yes. And that's the other thing I thought would be a little cleaner, tighter, is if we just didn't do that mid-year thing, just waited, because I think we can handle it better at the end of the year and prepare for it.
I like the shift from it becoming an expectation that they're going to get something to, you can have all of that. You just have to do it. And if you don't do it, you don't get any of it.
Yeah.
When would you have the data available for that payout, guys? I think thinking about the end of the fiscal year, would you have that by the end of May? Would that be a June or July thing before it's all tabulated? How long will we give them to get their PD done if they're a returning teacher?
May, right, Dr. Windsor?
Well, the PD there's a date on that one.
May 31st.
May 31st. And Mrs. Mendonça, she knows she's run this thing so many times, we can get the data for the other part by June. Because it's based upon the map.
But I won't be here to do it, so just.
That's why I carefully worded the sentence.
I will train somebody. How about that?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or questions on the CSF?
No.
Okay, would we like to entertain a motion to adopt?
To adopt as presented. This is Ben.
A second. It's Beth.
Thank you.
On video, and we should do a voice on this one.
Roll call.
Roll call. Thank you. Roll call. I'm just new.
Okay. Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Windsor,
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza,
Yes.
Dr. Tejan,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Hobeige, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Next thing up.
Next item is the revised teacher salary schedule, Dr. Windsor.
Okay. You want me to do this one? Or miss?
Oh, yeah, can you go ahead and talk us through this one, Dr. Windsor?
Sure. A few years ago, we passed a teacher salary schedule that allowed that empowered someone to move from this lane to this lane, not necessarily with a higher degree or more credit hours, but based upon a portfolio they had put together. It was an idea, but the idea never really got fleshed out. We had 2 teachers who accomplished that, who moved over. So it was too confusing. So we went back to the old teacher salary schedule, and we even defined it a little bit better because we want to get this out into the hands, into our standard operating procedure book. So there's no feeling of confusion or wondering of what the salary schedule is. So there's no change in here. Okay.
But I'm looking at those numbers freaking out a little bit. Could you see my eyes?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I know. No, I didn't see it. I felt it. No, nothing changed here. Nothing changed here. What changed was that we wanted to define what steps are. Steps are not equal to years employed, period, or years how many you have in the field. It only represents the level of base pay within that column of eligibility.
I love it.
2, we wanted to make it very clear, non-certified teachers. Teachers hired without a valid and current teacher certification start at the annual salary of $48,500, not to exceed 5 years of experience. To remain employed, the teachers in this category must begin and remain in the process of obtaining the required Arizona Department of Education certifications, and they have 2 years to do it from being hired. After obtaining the certificate, they'll move to the certified schedule lane at the same step. If their non-certified teacher fails, we want to make very clear, if you don't obtain your teacher certificate within the 2 years, we have the option to either dismiss the teacher or freeze at the current salary level until they get it completed. 3, NC, these are NC. Oh, what these levels mean. NC means non-certified, bachelor's degree, master's, and doctorate. 4, this right here. 4 is a plus CP, which means competitive content area, a degree and certification with an endorsement, hired and engaged in the following competitive content area. Not that you just have it, but we hired you for that. The reading, math, or early childhood endorsement. Class site fund performance. The salary does not include the Paideia Academies class site fund performance plan, as some districts do include that thing and it's padded. So we want to make sure that we understood it does not include that. Experience credit, we go up to 7 years for experience credit. Nothing for your time as a substitute. And then we just added this part. All Paideia educators are expected to be certified in the field in which they are employed. All 9 through 12 teachers are required to meet the Arizona Department of Education highly qualified requirements. We'll recognize valid and current out-of-state certification for those K-8 teachers with a current Arizona Structured English Immersion SEI endorsement. They must have that. Work beyond contract pay. Work beyond contract pay except as stipend on the stipend schedule for special interest, other activities is at a $30 an hour rate. Holiday is based upon the master schedule adopted by the board. So we just wanted to simplify it, make it as clearly communicated as we possibly could. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Did we add days to the contract, Brian?
No, that's what it was last year. I didn't change that.
Okay, so those are 200 working days, scheduled days of work, not no holidays or anything like that are added to that number.
Right, that's the new hires show up a week before the veteran teachers do. Yeah, and that's just those working days.
So it's a high number, but not necessarily a bad number. I'm wondering, does that include holidays? Usually we're 180 academic days, another maybe 10 in service / training for new. We got an extra 10 in there somehow, maybe.
180 plus 17. I don't know, it's been too long since we had this discussion on that one. I can't remember.
And that's
good.
not
That's a good
necessarily
question.
either here nor there for this discussion. I was just curious. That seemed like it might have been a change, but I don't have your old schedule in front of me.
Well, contract days. There's 180 days of actual days in the classroom.
Yep.
And they show up 2 weeks before. That's another 10. I don't know. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to look into that.
In looking at this, Brian, have you done any kind of crosswalks with Sandra to see, will there be any changes to our current staff, like replacing them on this scale? Is everything exactly like it is right now? Or will there be movement from one column to the other based on some of that other verbiage?
No, there'd be no movement.
So it really has no impact at all budgetarily. We're
It
just
has none.
We're just clarifying our intention with this. Gotcha. Okay.
Because there was some, dissatisfaction. There's some wondering, like, hey, what is the salary scale? I saw one on this other website. What's ours? And hey, shouldn't I be in this lane? Hey, why am I only on step 5? I've been teaching here, for this many years. And so I thought, it's time to clarify this
I
thing.
think this is very, very concise. I'm looking at this. My concern is always, can it be administered cleanly? Is it something the employee could find themselves on the scale based on things? That this seems very, very descriptive.
On their contract now, as well as their PAF, the personal action form, it's coded B4.
And they would move a step, Brian, or they would move laterally based on their review and or completion of additional credit hours or any number of things that are demonstrable, right? So
The only way you
step
do
increase if you give them a step increase, but it might not apply across the board. It's based on
That's
their
right.
review.
The only step increase I could see is if we vote to give them a raise. It's 1.5% raise every year.
Yeah, which would be the assumption that we would like to work around. If they're satisfactory, they would get that, but it doesn't require us to do that based on how it's written.
No, there's nothing in here that says every year they'll get another step.
So you could have a teacher stay on step and another teacher in the same cohort move up a step based on their review. Is that kind of the way you're?
No, I think we'd get into trouble with that one because there's nothing in there that says that would be a penalty or a prize.
So the concept of a step increase is global based on budget availability. Everyone gets it.
Right.
Not
As what I understand it as it is right now. Victoria Beth, is that how you understand it?
I think that's how we've always, that's how we've done it in the past. I don't think we've ever done it differently from that before.
Yeah. Okay. If there's any other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Paideia Academy's teacher salary schedule.
This has been so moved.
Oops, sorry,
Second.
Victoria. I just took over, Victoria. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're, yep.
Stop my video. No, just quiet.
And Ms. Hobesh, I think I heard Ms. Martinez second.
Yeah.
Was that?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, roll call.
Yes,
Mrs. Jones,
yes.
Dr. Windsor,
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza,
Yes.
Dr. Tejan,
Yes.
Mrs. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Hobeige, yes.
Okay. The next item is our discussion and vote on the principal evaluation policy. And, yep, you have that one, Dr. Windsor? Yeah, he's,
The law requires, I'll give this over to Victoria. Let me set it up to Ms. Jones. The law requires us to have a policy a board passed policy of our principal evaluation annually. I knew that, and I thought we had done it, but I could not find it anywhere. So I recreated one, passed it by Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Mendoza and Ms. Loring, and now we're ready to present it to the board.
okay, so a few of the, just an overview of the policy itself. Dr. Windsor just went over the objective is really just to ensure that our school leadership is aligned with our mission, providing whole person, high quality education, and fostering student achievement, supporting faculty, and cultivating a positive school culture. So we have a few elements in this, the evaluation cycle. This evaluation cycle is administered by the executive director annually. There will be mid-year and end-of-year reviews, as well as informal feedback and coaching sessions by the executive leadership team throughout the year to ensure continuous improvement in these are ways for us to address any immediate concerns. As far as the evaluation timeline, we have a mid-year evaluation conducted in January and the end-of-year evaluation conducted in June. And of course, ongoing feedback throughout the year as needed for continuous professional development. The components of the plan of the policy, they're evaluated on leadership competencies like whole person commitment, the 7 habits, and the 4 essential roles of leadership. The 4 characteristics of highly effective school. These characteristics come from the Cognia accreditation tool that we've implemented and used. So key characteristic 1 is on the culture of learning. So there's, I think, 6 standards there on culture of learning. Under the second, sorry, Dr. Windsor?
We didn't include all of them because some of them were more board level, but we included everyone that was leader driven.
Correct, right. That directly addressed the leader in the culture of learning at the school.
Yeah.
Key characteristic 2 is leadership of learning. So again, those standards that address how the leader guides learning and the culture of learning at our school. The 3rd characteristic is engagement of learning. And these standards address how the leader ensures engaging instruction of high expectations and understanding of the curriculum. The 4th characteristic is growth in learning, how the leader demonstrates an understanding of data, action research, evaluation of instructional programs, and learner goals. And then the second portion of I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Section 2.3 is operational management. So an evaluation of how the leader oversees efficient school operations, such as budget, staffing, facilities, compliance with our regulatory requirements, and managing our school resources like hiring, enrolling, facility management. Section 3 is on academic progress. So quantitative data on the academic progress of students. And this section accounts for 20% of leadership effectiveness in this rubric. Number 4, how, the evaluation tools and processes that will take place. So there will be a self-assessment. The principal completes a self-assessment, a reflection on the accomplishments, challenges, and areas of improvement of that past year. Surveys and feedback gathered from staff, teachers, parents, and students through anonymous surveys as appropriate. A data review of key performance indicators, student achievement data, the school climate surveys, staff retention, and operational performance data. And then observation and walkthroughs of leadership practices, interactions with staff, instructional oversight. Evaluation criteria and scoring. So highly effective, effective, developing, and ineffective. So the rubric. The professional development plan. So if we have a principal who receives a rating of developing or ineffective, a tailored professional development plan will be created to outline specific goals, resources for improvement, and a timeline for their reassessment. There's a process for evaluation review and appeals. So the principal has an opportunity to review the findings, provide a written response. If they disagree with the evaluation, they can request an appeal reviewed by the board or a third-party evaluator. And then confidentiality and documentation, that all the materials are kept confidential, all the feedback reports. They're used solely for the purpose of professional development and performance assessment. So they're stored in our HR system. And then with this policy review and updates, so should be reviewed annually by the corporate board and updated as necessary to ensure it aligns with our evolving goals and state regulations. So the purpose of this policy is to ensure that the evaluations are holistic, growth-oriented, and aligned with the mission of Paideia Academies, and that we promote leadership that fosters academic and operational excellence. And that's an overview of the policy. Any questions?
In your meeting notice, I put just for your information, I put the rubric in on the meeting notice so you can see what each of these sections look like in depth.
This is Ben. I saw that you included the rubric. The intent is this applies to all principals in the district the same, right?
Yes.
And so is there any, I guess maybe this is a premature question, but is there a reason is there a foreseeable reason that the rubrics might diverge between the different levels of the campuses, the elementary versus leadership academy?
We've definitely had that conversation on this. I think it could in the future. There's such a difference between grades 9 through 12 and down below. But having said that, the Cognia 4 key characteristics of a school and those standards are really universal. They're intended to be universal in nature and should apply to all. Now, the rubric might have different wording based upon the different level, I suppose, could. I don't want to, count that out. Another place, if you, in studying that, we left it open for what artifacts and evidence that they would provide. So Ms. Johnson at the elementary campus might provide a different piece of artifact for demonstrating that proficiency than Mr. Gilmer would at the upper level. So there's some leeway there that they could demonstrate that proficiency that way.
Well, I like that it's intended to be universal. I think if you can drive differentiation based on like performance and outcomes, then that should be sufficient. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
certainly sufficient for now. I didn't mean to monopolize, but if no other comments, I would move to adopt as presented.
I'll second that. Do we need roll call on this one?
Yeah, most definitely.
Miss Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Windsor,
Yes.
Miss Mendoza,
Yes.
Dr. Tejan,
Yes.
Miss Martinez,
Yes.
Miss Hobage, yes.
Okay, our last, or our next item is to inform the board of the Title IX coordinator. Dr. Windsor, do you have this one as well?
I hope I do it right. Let's see if I got it. We had the discussion. I'm sure I'm getting it right. So instead of a person, we have, and man, chime in if I'm getting this wrong, Mrs. Mendonça and Mrs. Jones. We decided it would be a position. So the school counselor at the high school would be the Title IX coordinator, and the school social worker at the elementary campus would be the Title IX coordinator. Did I get it right?
Yes, that's what we discussed.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a great outcome. This is not something we need to vote on, right?
No,
Informing the board.
but
That's
I'm
a good,
very
that's a
thankful.
good conclusion. That's awesome. Good call.
And thank you. You know, one of the evidence of a great, strong board is the questions and the push and stuff to make us think deeper about things. And that was one of those instances that had a great outcome, a real outcome. Thank you. Next item. I see one more.
I'm sorry, one more item here. We have the, last item is adjournment. So do we have someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So
This
move,
is
so
good.
move me.
Yeah. Brian's already out of daylight. I'm running out of daylight here
Yeah.
in Denver. It's a
Oh,
beautiful
you're in
sunset.
Denver?
Yeah, you can't see it from my screen, but it's certainly a nice sunset outside. So
Oh man, beautiful.
Yeah. To adjourn.
Second.
And we can voice vote this one, I think, Ms. Hobage.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Our next meeting will be our annual meeting.
Yes.
We'll see you there. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Hey,
Thanks,
have a good
everyone.
night. Bye.
Good night.